Stage 1 LOX load complete. Stage 2 LOX load complete.
Ground gas closeouts.
Falcon 9 is in startup.
The launch director is go for launch.
T-minus 30 seconds. T-minus 15 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition. Engines full power and liftoff. Go Falcon, go Starlink.
Chamber pressures are nominal.
Vehicle's pitching downrange. Power and telemetry nominal. Vehicle is supersonic. Max Q.
MVAC engine chill.
Vehicle trajectory is nominal.
MECO.
Stage separation confirmed. Fairing separation confirmed. Both vehicle trajectories are nominal. Stage 1 FTS has safed.
Stage 1, entry burn startup. Stage 1, entry burn shutdown.
Stage 2 FTS has safed. Both vehicle trajectories continue to be nominal.
Stage 1 transonic. Stage 1 landing burn. Stage 1 landing light deploy.
All right, well, you've been watching a SpaceX launch of the 23 Starlink satellites. Apologies for at the end there. It looks like that web stream started buffering, so we didn't end up getting to see the first stage booster land on the shortfall of Gravitas drone ship in the Atlantic Ocean. But that is what happened there just a moments ago before that feed ended. 23 Starlink satellites, 13 of them with the direct-to-cell capabilities being launched just moments ago from Space Launch Complex 40 at Kennedy Space Center here along our Space Coast in Florida. We're going to take a break here on Fox 35 News Plus, but we will be right back with more after this.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Well, welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. I'm Garrett Weimer, and thanks for joining us on this Tuesday afternoon, live on fox35orlando.com, the Fox 35 News app, and on Fox Local. It is a 4:09, and that means it is time for today's Top 4 at 4, where we break down 4 of the big stories that we are tracking in the Fox 35 newsroom this afternoon. And joining me live for today's Top 4 at 4 is Fox 35 News anchor and reporter Marlisa Goldsmith. Marlisa, thanks for being here.
Absolutely. Happy to be here, Garrett.
So we just watched a SpaceX launch from the Space Coast.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, we are getting ready for the arrival of some astronauts back to the other coast of Florida.
Yes. This is a moment that we have been waiting for how many months now?
9 months?
9 months, close to 10.
Yeah.
So imagine the feeling that we have as just normal people here on Earth. Imagine the feeling that the astronauts have. I can't even imagine. Sure. This has probably been the longest unexpected journey of their life. So stranded NASA astronauts Sunny Williams and Butch Wilmore, they're getting ready to return home to Earth with Crew-9 after an unexpected 9-month stay in space. The two astronauts, along with Crew-9's Nick Hague and cosmonaut Alexander Gorbanov, are on board the Crew-9 SpaceX Dragon spacecraft. They closed the hatch last night. Stephanie Buffamonte was covering that for us last night during the 10 o'clock newscast. And then they undocked from the ISS around 1 a.m. They're going to enter Earth's orbit around 5:11 p.m. So we're talking a matter like 60 minutes at this point. Yeah, exactly an hour from now. And then splashdown off Florida's coast is going to be around 5:57. Of course, timing could always change, give or take a little bit. But we are going to have live coverage of the splashdown this evening, and then NASA is expected to hold a press conference at 7:30 following their return here to Earth.
The thing that strikes me there, it's within minutes they will be taken out of that capsule that splashes down. They'll be going to the Johnson Space Center in Houston and finally able to see their families again.
I can't imagine.
And I'm sure it's got to be even harder on the families than it is on the astronauts because, the astronauts, you're in space. Like Sunny Williams said in a video we played yesterday, she's been in her happy place, on board the ISS. You're astronauts. Like, that's where you want to be.
Right.
But for your family, just having to live life for 9 months without them there, and they have kids. I know.
Kids. And they're not like grown children. We're talking about kids going through school still. So I can't imagine mom or dad. You're expecting them to be gone for a couple of days. They'll be back.
Yeah.
But they've missed maybe homecoming. They've missed Christmas. They've missed New Year celebration. All these different holidays and events. So I can't imagine what that feels like when they finally are reunited today.
Well, we will find out shortly. 5:11 to re-enter Earth's atmosphere, and then just before 6 o'clock expected that splashdown. So, like you said, we will have coverage of that on Fox 35 News. Second today, big news out of that phone call with the White House, Trump, Putin, some news coming out of that they agree that Russia should begin ceasefire negotiations with Ukraine.
Yeah, this is huge. Obviously, this is the first time the two have spoken since about mid-February, so we're talking about a month ago. President Donald Trump spoke with Russian President Vladimir Putin for at least 90 minutes today about ending the war in Ukraine. The two leaders agreed the negotiations will begin immediately in the Middle East, and they also agreed to a ceasefire against energy infrastructure. Now, last night, President Trump mentioned that many elements of a final agreement to end the Ukraine war have been agreed to, but there's still other elements, of course, that need to be worked out. What those are that remain, we still don't know, but I'm sure that they'll be open about discussing that. At least President Trump probably will be sharing more information about that in the coming days. But again, huge that the two spoke and they have agreed on some things here.
A promising start, at least. Obviously, things could always change, but at least what we know right now, it is certainly promising.
Absolutely.
Also promising, very great news this morning after the news yesterday of a couple of missing teenage paddleboarders in Levy County. And this morning, miraculously, they were found safe.
They were. We're talking about two 16-year-old girls. They were found safe after they were reported missing. You're taking a look at an image of the two there paddleboarding. This was a paddleboarding excursion in Cedar Key on Monday. It then prompted search efforts both on the water and from the air. As you can imagine, this was an all-hands-on-deck situation. The teenagers were found by search volunteers this morning near Porpoise Point, according to deputies. As for their condition, I'm sure you're wondering, deputies say that they were very cold, but otherwise in fairly good health. So good news, one, that they were found, and two, that they're in good health and they're going to be okay.
Yeah, and I talked earlier with the Levy County Sheriff's Office, and they said their main concern was they were very worried about the situation ending differently, not happy like it was today. And this is what Lieutenant Tummond said about that.
Involved in way too many cases that had a very unhappy ending. This is this is quite the elation for all of our first responders and volunteers that they were found safe. Again, that's not the norm, especially with the conditions that we saw last night. 2 girls on a single paddleboard. From what I can tell, they didn't have any life jackets, and it was cold last night and very windy.
And so very thankful, given all of those factors, that the things turned out the way they did. And the sheriff's office also talked about having so much help from the community. They had folks volunteer. I mean, the people who spotted them were just volunteers, just out searching. And so Lieutenant Tummond also talked about that, having the turnout from the community to help them search and really just kind of fan out, because, you know, these girls were found about 14 miles away. So it was a big search, and this is what Lieutenant Tummond said about the community pitching in to help.
Oh, golly, I can't even imagine the number. I don't have a solid number yet of the volunteers that showed up, but normally we will see 40, 50 boats in a situation like this of all volunteers. And then you add to that the law enforcement resources that are out there from the Coast Guard, FWC, our units, Citrus County. It's amazing how much help we can get very quickly when we have lives in peril, especially kids. That kind of strikes close to home for a lot of our folks.
Yeah, and so a great ending to that story after what sounded like a tense few hours overnight.
And similar to a recent story we covered with the 2 girls who were bitten by a shark.
Yeah.
This is a situation and a story that I'm sure will bond these 2 girls together forever.
Yeah.
I mean, surviving something like this, what a miraculous story. So happy that they were found.
Now tonight, the NCAA tournament begins with the first 4 games. So these are kind of the play-in games. So just the little appetizer before the real craziness starts. But a lot of times these are good games tonight too. So exciting time of year.
Very exciting, Garrett. The NCAA tournament begins tonight. We're talking 2025 March Madness tournament getting underway with the first 4 games in Dayton, Ohio today. First up, Alabama State versus St. Francis. That's going to be at 6:40 this evening. The second game, San Diego State versus North Carolina. That airs at 9:10 this evening. Both of these games airing on True TV. We are working on a bracket, and that reminds me I need to finish my bracket, Garrett. I'm a little behind.
Yeah, you still have time. A lot of times these bracket pools don't count these first 4 games.
Oh, good.
So,
good to know.
so you've got a little bit of extra time there. But let's talk a little bit about the Florida Gators, because they had a great season.
Yes.
You see 30-4, 14-4 in the SEC, which was by far the toughest conference this year. They won their 5th SEC championship. They got their 3rd 1 seed in program history, and they were the 4th overall 1 seed. They've got a tough bracket, though. Their first game is going to be on Friday. They'll play Norfolk State, and then if they, assuming they win, they're the 28-point favorite. They should. They will play the winner of UConn and Oklahoma. So tough bracket ahead for them, but they've had a great season. They've got a great team, and going to be interesting to see if they can make a run. And honestly, they should. There are a lot of predictions. I spoke earlier with Kevin Brockway, who's a Gators beat reporter for the Gainesville Sun, and he said there's really no reason they shouldn't emerge from the West region and make it to the Final Four.
Yeah, and have you seen the projections? A lot of people are saying that they're predicted to take it all.
It could happen. Could happen. Now, when I was talking with Kevin, I also asked him about the team staying hungry and pushing for that, because when you're the underdog, you may have something to fight for. It's a little bit different. You're a 1 seed, and so I asked him about how they stay hungry, and he said that's a good question. They had just asked the coach about that, and here's a little bit of what he said.
We just asked Todd about that, and I think it's still having that kind of chip on your shoulder mentality, and there are a lot of ways you can draw that. I think with this team, you had a lot of transfers that came in from different places that were kind of under-recruited and undervalued, or a guy like Alex Condon who came from Australia that not many people knew about. So I think they're kind of clinging to that, and maybe even the fact that they won the SEC tournament, but they didn't move up on the 1 seed line. They didn't get a chance to play in Atlanta. They're making them go all the way across the country to San Francisco. That's a little bit of a slight. So finding different ways and motivation to kind of keep that chip on your shoulder, going through it, I think is something that they'll try to draw some fuel from.
So whatever it takes to get that motivation.
Exactly. Whatever it takes. They have to stay hungry and they have to stay humble. That's a big job for the coach. That
is very true. Now, for those of you who regularly watch this, you probably know I'm a University of Kentucky grad. And so I'll be pulling for the Cats, but they're on the other side of the bracket, so they wouldn't have to meet for a while. Right. So we'll see if Kentucky makes it that far. If I were putting my money on it, I'd definitely put more money on Florida than Kentucky this year. But
we'll
so
see.
We'll see.
You never know what will happen.
You never know. It's fun. It's just a fun time of year. I love it. I love being able to throw my bracket in the trash after the first weekend because all the upsets have just made it irrelevant. So that's normally what happens. But we'll see.
Well, we'll see. I'm going to give it a try this year since you tell me I still have time.
Yes, you still have a little bit of time. All right. That's the last tip I'm giving you though. No more. That's today's Top Forward 4. Marlisa, thanks for joining us.
No problem.
We're going to take a break and we'll be right back.
Watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Well, welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. I'm Garrett Weimer, and thanks for joining us on this Tuesday afternoon, live on fox35orlando.com, the Fox 35 News app, and on Fox Local. And Fox 35 Storm Team meteorologist Noah Berggren joins me now. And Noah, another beautiful day here in the Sunshine State.
Yeah, you know, Garrett, I don't know if you noticed on your way into work today, but the air is crisp. It's very dry. This is a winter-like air mass over us, and by winter I mean mid-January. If this was January 10th, this would be even lower humidity and cooler than what would be average for the dead of January in Florida. So for spring breakers and all of the massive people that are here at the theme parks and at the beaches, and all the kids off of school and all the teachers from up north who've come down. This is a January kind of week outside of tomorrow. The whole week outside of tomorrow is just remarkably low humidity. And you can see on the sky there's not a single cloud. The profile of the atmosphere from the ground all the way up to the stratosphere is just bone dry. There can't even be a contrail. That's how dry it is today. A little bit of a breeze. 69 the temperature now in Volusia County. So other story we are monitoring though is drought. We had a fire yesterday at Cape Canaveral. We've had another brush fire today in Osceola County. We'll have some news coverage on that, I do believe, coming up on the news at 5 and 6. Some homes were evacuated. It does not appear to be a dire situation, but a fire at least threatened a couple homes in Osceola County today. And lack of rain is a big story heading into the next few weeks, as we are still in a La Nina, which means little rain even for the dry season in Florida. There's Titusville today, beautiful. Here's the dew point, extremely low. Miami, Tampa, and Jacksonville. We don't have balloon soundings. Each Weather Service office, most of them in the U.S., launches balloons up in the atmosphere on a daily basis. And we don't have that from the office in Melbourne. Variety of reasons for that. But Jacksonville, Tampa's office, and then Miami, all three of them had a record low today for the averaged humidity in the atmosphere. It is crisp and very, very dry out there. Winds yesterday were from the northwest. Today they're from the northeast, about 10 to 15. The gusts, yesterday the gusts were 20 to 25. So certainly less windy than yesterday, but still a little bit of a breeze. No rain, temperatures not cold, but I mean, Garrett, you can back me up on this. I mean, 66 in New Smyrna at 4 in the afternoon. It's probably surprisingly chilly for many people, especially if they maybe you're younger and they don't watch local weather or national weather, you know, just use an automated weather app. There's probably a lot, I'm joking, but it's probably true. There's a lot of people, I'm sure, that have come that are very surprised at how chilly it is on the beaches. I mean, 66 in the middle of the afternoon is chilly. With the wind and you're standing on the beach, I mean, if you don't have a sweatshirt or a long sleeve, you're probably a little cool. And that's because that wind's blowing off the water, which is still very cool for the time of year. So it is a decently bit below what would be normal for the middle of March. I mean, nobody's complaining, but if you're on the beach, it's a wee bit chilly. High temperature today, peak so far was in Tampa and Fort Myers at 80. So Garrett, the next thing to know about is a front on Thursday. Just a couple of sprinkles in the afternoon, and the weekend looks to be fantastic. But for everybody who's here visiting, it looks overall very nice for the rest of the week, but chilly.
Yeah, 66 degrees, probably not warm enough to be getting in the water if you are at the beach. I think I would want to stay out.
Let me go back to that camera. You know, it's funny you say that, Garrett. I know we've got to go here in a second, but I was looking at that camera earlier, and I didn't see a lot of people. I did not see a lot of people swimming in the water. I believe it's the camera. Yeah, there's not. I don't see anybody in there right now. It's funny you say that.
Yeah, I don't think I could blame them. I don't know. 69 degrees right there right now. That would be a tough one. You know, it might feel fine when you're in.
That wind is probably making it feel like it's like 60 or 58. You know.
Yeah, that's a good point. So feels nice. Enjoy the lack of humidity. But yeah, not getting in the water like that. Fox 35 Storm Team meteorologist Noah Berggren, we appreciate you joining us.
Sounds good. Thank you.
We're going to take a break and we'll be right back.
watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. Less than an hour away now, or excuse me, I'm having to do the math and I just realized I did it wrong. We're about an hour and a half away now. Esther, and I can see Esther laughing at me in the Zoom. That makes it even worse. We're about an hour and a half away now from the arrival of the Starliner astronauts back to Earth here after 9 months in space. We know it's going to take them a little bit of time to get used to Earth again. Maybe they lost all their math skills while in orbit as well. Not that I have an excuse for that, but Fox 35's Esther Bauer joins us live now via Zoom. Esther, first of all, I don't appreciate your reaction when I did the math wrong, but we do appreciate you joining us here on Fox 35 News Plus.
No, math is not our strong suits, and numbers are coming to just feel like it's been 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 9 months in space. So no apologies needed, and sorry for laughing. But yeah, so the time that we are tracking for Sunny and Butch and the rest of Crew-9 to splash down here on Earth is 5:57 p.m. So just, I mean, a little over that 1.5 hour mark, which is so exciting because you think about this duo strapped into a Boeing Starliner capsule on June 5th. I was trying to look up the exact date. They went to space for this 8-day test flight to see how the capsule did going to space, brand new capsule. It didn't do so well. And so they ended up just being so flexible dealing with when are we going to come back from space? Well, over the past week, we have been talking about Crew-10. They successfully docked at the station. So overnight, we were able to see Crew-9, which includes, yep, there we go, Sunny, Butch, and 2 other teammates getting into a Dragon capsule, undocking from the space station, and now as I speak they are just venturing down to Earth. So what I do want to tell you is this is going to be splashing down here off the coast of Florida, not the East Coast but the West Coast in the Gulf. So that is what we are tracking very closely. Now NASA is going to start another live feed at 4:45, and that's where we're going to be, seeing this Dragon capsule coming closer and closer and closer before officially touching down in the open sea. So we are excited for Sunny and Butch to come home. This duo has been unbelievably positive, just saying, yes, we planned for 8 days in space, but we trained for however long NASA needed us to stay in space. And they've spent, I was trying to do the math, so I'm going to get it wrong, about 286 days in space, which is just an amazing amount of time. Usually crew goes up there for about 6 months. They are nearing that 10-month mark, and they have not wavered. They've been excited to be up there. They told us before it's a little bit bittersweet because they are not sure if they're ever going to get to go to space, but we do know transitioning back to life on Earth isn't going to be the smoothest thing. They have to probably readjust walking, dealing with the gravity. Something I was thinking about too is I wonder if when they get like a little bottle of water, if they're just gonna leave it somewhere and thinking it would just float, but then it will end up falling. So just dealing with, having gravity back, muscle, bone loss, some potential vision changes. So just a lot of things that they are going to have to deal with after a long stay in space. And what we do know is NASA is going to be studying them closely, really seeing, okay, how did these 2 people who have been in space for 10 months, what are the mental, physical changes that they are dealing with? And how can we learn from that from when we do send people to the moon and to Mars? So an exciting day here. I mean, this is being watched around the world. I would say it's really the most highly, visible splashdown that we've covered in years, and just hoping that they make it back to Earth safely. Yeah,
we'll be watching for that closely. But you bring up a good point. I love the water bottle analogy because you think about it, like it wasn't for the longest time, wasn't even something they had to worry about. Oh, I'll just sit here and it may float off. I may have to reach for it, but it's not going to fall. Just little things like that I'm sure will take time for them to kind of reacclimate to down here where we actually have gravity. It's just fascinating.
Yes, absolutely. So we are thrilled. We'll be tracking the splashdown closely, and we'll make sure to bring you all the details as we see them come back.
All right. Fox 35's Esther Bauer, we appreciate you joining us here on Fox 35 News Plus today.
Thank you.
All right, and meanwhile, so 5:57, the time for that. Esther mentioned the live stream coming up soon. We'll try to check in on that shortly after it begins as well, before we wrap up our show here on Fox 35 News Plus. I want to go now to Flagler County, where a father was arrested after deputies say they found his 2-year-old son alone outside of their home, and then they also found the home inside in terrible condition, investigators say. Fox 35's Chris Lindsay joins us live now via Zoom. And Chris, what have you been able to learn about this case?
Well, I just left the neighborhood not too long ago. The suspect's name is Ross Judy. He's 44 years old. And as you mentioned, there were several 911 calls that came out of a neighborhood in the C section of Palm Coast saying that they saw this little boy wandering in the street. When deputies showed up, they found Judy, and according to them, he appeared to be intoxicated. They took a look inside of the home, and that's where they found it to be in terrible condition. They say that there were spoiled foods on the floor and on the counter. There were exposed razors, there were hypodermic needles, bugs, and just other terrible things, especially when you're taking a child living there into account. There was also a dog that had a pretty serious injury near his ear and was malnourished. So all of these factors, they charged Judy with child neglect and that there is footage of the body camera encounter as they were putting him in cuffs. You can see the child there in front of him. They were able to secure them, and they're working with DCF to see the next moves for that child, but they are in a safe place right now, and they are doing okay despite the terrible condition of the home.
Chris, were you able to talk to neighbors at all around there? Did something like this surprise them, or did they have anything to say?
Yes, I spoke with a few neighbors. Interestingly enough, they say that they were aware of how things had kind of turned out, and they say that it wasn't always this way ever since he moved in. They believe that perhaps something occurred to where his condition kind of deteriorated. There are a few speculations about his mental condition, nothing that the police were able to confirm at this point, but they say that he wasn't always like this, so it was a bit of a shock when they heard this, but they had noticed certain patterns developing here recently.
All right, we certainly hope the best for that child, regardless of what happens next. Fox 35's Chris Lindsay, we appreciate you joining us here on Fox 35 News Plus today.
Thank you.
And we're going to take a break, but we'll be right back after this.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Well, welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. I'm Garrett Weimer, and thanks for joining us on this Tuesday afternoon. We talked earlier this afternoon on Florida Live with Gary Fineout. He's a political reporter about some bills to watch this week in Tallahassee, the first congressional endorsement in the 2026 governor's race, and also a complicated selection for the governor when it comes to the soon-to-be open seat for CFO. I want to play for you our interview. This was live on Florida Live this afternoon here on Fox Local.
The position is going to be vacant because Jimmy Patronis is probably going to win his election to Congress on April 1st. And so the question is, who is Governor Ron DeSantis going to pick to fill that spot until the 2026 election? And, the thought process is whoever the governor does pick will have a good leg up in terms of running for that position in 2026.
But there are some things that make this a little bit complicated because of the people we know who are interested in this seat, Gary.
Exactly. So basically, President Trump has already endorsed a state senator from Sarasota by the name of Joe Gruters. He's a former chair of the Republican Party of Florida and is a longtime ally of the president. But there's another person, State Senator Blaise Ingoglia, who's from the Spring Hill, Citrus County area, who is a strong ally of DeSantis, who has expressed interest in the job. So the question is, does Governor DeSantis appoint someone who is seen as the person that Trump wants, or does he appoint someone that he's more comfortable with? And the other part of the backstory is that Governor DeSantis and Senator Gruters don't have the warmest of relationships.
Now let's talk a little. Right. So now let's shift gears here a little bit and talk the 2026 governor's race. Byron Donalds got his first congressional endorsement. As some of these endorsements have started to come in, this is the first one from a sitting member of Congress.
Right. He got Congressman Buchanan, Vernon Buchanan, endorsed him today. And then basically, this comes on the heels of course, the President Trump has endorsed Representative Donalds. Senator Scott didn't quite endorse him, but kind of said he didn't see how he could be beat. And then we have other organizations that are starting to come. And now let's remember, right now, Representative Donalds is the only, sort of is well-known Republican who is in the race, has opened a campaign account, is jumped in there. When we keep waiting to see whether or not First Lady Casey DeSantis is going to get into the race as well. We have previously reported that she and her husband, Governor DeSantis, have talked to people about the possibility of her joining a race. Not quite sure when a final decision is going to be made. I would anticipate it, it won't be terribly long before a decision is made, but it may not be immediate.
Do you think the rollout of these endorsement announcements is designed to kind of be like, hey, we're going to be tough to beat. Don't even bother entering this race, Casey DeSantis?
Oh, I think obviously the timing of all this appears to have sort of coincided with the fact that there was consideration and talk, among donors and supporters about whether or not Casey DeSantis was going to get in. So I think definitely, you see the Donalds campaign is trying to show its, the breadth of its support and the strength that he has. And yes, I think there is an effort to sort of say, look, Donalds is the pick of the president, and there's going to be a lot of people rallying behind him. But I would say that the conversations on regarding the First Lady have been serious. These are not fly-by-night conversations. This is something that is being seriously contemplated.
Legislative session going on right now, and a lot been going on with that. Talk to us about some of the bills that we saw yesterday come up, because I know there were a couple that had to do with candidates and term limits and a lot of things when it comes to electoral kind of eligibility for seats.
Yeah, there on the term limit side, there's been some conversation as to whether or not lawmakers should be able to, quote, ping pong back from the House to the Senate, back to the House, or back to the Senate. And that came up in a case of a person who is now running for the state Senate over in the Space Coast area. So this measure, which would be a constitutional amendment, would have to be approved by the voters. It went through committee yesterday, and then there was a separate constitutional amendment that would apply term limits to county commissioners. I don't know if these measures are going to make the ballot. There were some Republicans that expressed concerns about some of the way that these bills would work. So we'll see. That nothing has moved on the House side in this term limits issue. Meanwhile, what we also see moving is there are sort of some bills that have to do with candidate qualification, and basically right now we have a kind of an interesting situation in Florida in that if you fill out your paperwork and you turn in your paperwork, the state has to sort of just accept it and say, okay, you've qualified for the ballot, you turned all your paperwork in. There's been some court cases and some battles over the last couple of years where people have said, well, no, that person isn't fully qualified. But there have been rulings that have suggested that no one really can enforce that. So what we have going on is there's the possibility of some bills that would make it so that people could sue to get a candidate off the ballot if they weren't fully qualified. Now, this used to happen, and you would have lawsuits, and people would change qualifications. But it's these judicial rulings over the last few years that have suggested that you can't sue. So it's an interesting little dynamic going on, and we'll see whether or not the legislature actually does pass a fix.
Well, and that was something we also saw in that Debbie Mayfield case out of Brevard County with as well. So interesting intersections. Gary, last thing I'll ask you here, and that's what are you watching next when it comes to some items of interest in the state legislature?
Well, I think some of the bigger, we have some stuff coming up in the Senate this week, including the Rural Renaissance Package being championed by the Senate President. But they're about to get into what we consider the chief sausage-making portion of the session, and they're going to start working on the budget. And we're going to be intrigued to see whether or not how do the tax cut proposals the governor has and other elements of state spending, and they're really going to dive into that over the next 2 to 3 weeks as we're closing out week 3 in just a few days, and so 1/3 through the session already. And so it's the main thing that they are supposed to do every year is pass a budget. So it's just going to be interesting because the dynamic has changed and the relationship between the governor and the legislature has changed. And so I'm going to be looking forward to seeing how that all plays out.
We're going to take a break here on Fox 35 News Plus, but we'll be right back after this.
watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. I'm Garrett Weimer. I want to go ahead and get us inside a committee hearing in Tallahassee, where this is the Senate Governmental Oversight and Accountability hearing. You see Randy Fine right there. We've been standing by for the start of a discussion about the proposed constitutional amendment to get rid of the lieutenant governor position. That's SJR 1756. That is, I believe, actually sponsored by Randy Fine. But in the meantime, we've been hearing a lot of public comment on SB 1710, which would prohibit DEI for medical schools, so medical institutions of higher education. And there's been a lot of comment on that. So I want to go ahead and let's listen in to see what the conversation is now as it continues here for this hearing that began over an hour ago.
Bycheck, Nicole Dillon, David Weitzman, Jack Mitchie, Avery Colon, Ash B., Preston Scott. I'm not going to read them if they don't put their names anymore. Rose Kuhn, Lily Eubanks, Craig Cranston, Fendi Ann Carrington, Nancy Hagman, Dave Cutler, Stevens Pino, Karen Curtis Weekly, Linda Herod, Jill Haru, Abidelia Sakir, Casanova Doherty, Eileen Biscard, Emily Perez, Patricia DeWitt, Kirsten Browse, Michelle.
So just to jump in here for a minute, he's going through names of people who have who have kind of signed on, many of them in opposition to this bill. That is the vast majority of the speakers that we have seen in the last little bit since we've been monitoring this. And if we were to get another shot here of showing the crowd inside there, there have been quite a few people that you can see in that shot, even just when it's showing the podium, the people who have been speaking out about this bill. This is, again, SB 1710, prohibitions and limitations on diversity, equity, and inclusion, and requirements for medical institutions of higher education. This is the Governmental Oversight and Accountability Committee that is discussing this right now. This is the first time it has been considered. It has also been referred to two other committees. It looks like has not yet been considered in either one of those. So the first step for this one here today. Let's go ahead and check in here on the NASA Plus streaming coverage of the arrival of the Crew-9 astronauts, including Butch Wilmore, you see there. Also Sonny Williams, a Florida Tech alum as well. So let's go ahead and listen in to this for a few minutes here as we see how things are going with the arrival and pending splashdown of Crew-9.
From 2014 to 2015. Wilmore is also retired, a retired captain in the U.S. Navy.
And Alexander Gorbunov is a third mission specialist serving on today's mission. Crew-9 was his very first space flight to the space station, earning him a total of 171 days in space over the course of his career. Gorbunov, along with Nick Hague, saw the arrival of 4 visiting vehicles and saw the departure of 4 as well. The duo orbited the Earth more than 2,700 times during their mission. Before his cosmonaut selection in 2018, Gorbunov worked as an engineer for a rocket space corporation and helped support cargo spacecraft launches from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan.
To prepare for upcoming events, Dragon is currently doing a couple of things autonomously. First, it's isolating the thermal control system fluid loops from the radiator. This system is what will help keep the internal temperature of Dragon very comfortable for Nick, Sonny, Butch, and Alexander during the reentry phase. Dragon is also initiating separation of the claw mechanism, which will terminate data, power, and fluid connections between the spacecraft and the trunk in preparation for that trunk separation that I mentioned earlier. Now, as we saw before, we are hoping to get more views inside of the Dragon capsule. We will bring those, of course. We want to see more of our four crew members. But now a bit more of the Dragon Freedom capsule. It has flown on several missions for NASA. It first launched April 27th, 2022. To the International Space Station on NASA's SpaceX Crew-9 mission. It was subsequently used for 2 private spaceflight missions to the space station for Axiom Space, Axiom Mission 2 in May 2023, and Axiom Mission 3 in January of 2024. And of course, Crew-9 launched last year, is September 28th. So yeah, a little bit about the Dragon Freedom capsule. Here, a view that we have once again between the shoulders of Commander Nick Hague, who is on the left-hand side of your screen there, and Mission Specialist Alexander Gorbanov there on the right.
That's right, Kate. And the next major milestone that we're looking ahead towards this afternoon is claw separation. We're targeting that claw separation at 2:05 p.m. Pacific time this afternoon, so less than 10 minutes from now. Continuing to get some views inside Dragon Freedom. To the far left there is NASA astronaut Butch Wilmore, and as you can see, the crew is suited up in their space suits. They are suited up in what we call dynamic phases of flight. So when they launch, when they dock, when they undock, when they return back for splashdown. We might hear some call-outs on the loops about putting their visors down. That will happen just prior to deorbit burn. And you'll hear us pause when some of those communications happen. That's because we want to make sure that we are relaying the best information to you all, and so that you hear it as well. So if you do hear us pause, that is what we're doing. You also see they have their on there, and I know the gloves are pretty unique on the Dragon spacesuits, right? They're custom created?
Yes. The spacesuit overall is custom fit for each astronaut. These gloves enable usage of the touchscreen panels that they have in front of them. We can't see it from this view, but that view we saw earlier between Alexander Gorbanov and Nick Hague, that is a touchscreen. It allows the crew to monitor everything that Dragon is doing along with those.
This is NASA coverage of the return of Crew-9 on board that SpaceX Dragon capsule. They were talking about the spacesuits. You may remember because Butch and Sonny went up on a Boeing craft. They had different spacesuits, and so they had to have spacesuits brought to them before so that they would be able to come back with Crew-9. So if you are interested in continuing to watch that live stream coverage of the return of Crew-9, the splashdown expected here shortly, you can do that. We are streaming that live on fox35orlando.com/watch. That is our second stream. You are seeing some of the feed issues that we just saw a second ago there that have since been ironed out. So that will continue to stream through splashdown on fox35orlando.com/watch. On the left there, you are seeing inside Studio A here at the Fox 35 studios, where Marlisa and Luann are getting ready for the start of Fox 35 News at 5. If you're watching here on fox35orlando.com/live, if you're watching us on Fox Local, that is what you will see. You will also see that on Fox 35 on the TV side as well, but we will, of course, bring you the splashdown coverage on that as well. But again, if you want to watch that seamlessly, you can continue to do so on fox35orlando.com/watch. That's going to do it for us here on Fox 35 News Plus this afternoon. We'll be back here tomorrow at 11 a.m., at 2 p.m., and at 4 p.m. with more Fox 35 News Plus and with Florida Live. So we appreciate you joining us. The news never stops here on Fox Local, so keep it right here.
Right now on Fox 35, we are following two breaking stories right now. Homes threatened by a brush fire in Osceola County. But first, a long-awaited return to Earth. All eyes are on this capsule. It's carrying the 2 stranded Boeing astronauts back to Earth. This is a live look at the operation as that capsule gets closer to splash.